And good evening, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I am your host, as always, Tony DeFio, and I thank you for joining me on this lovely Friday evening in Pittsburgh. Of course, it's not really that lovely. I'm not going to lie. As you can see, I had problems with the beginning of the music, the intro music. But it's not lovely as far as the weather either. It's kind of nippy, as they say in Pittsburgh. It's a little chilly out, and we're gonna get some rain tomorrow. But of course, it could be a lot worse when people in Florida really got it bad from Hurricane was it Ian? So hopefully those guys can recover quickly. But I thank you for joining me. And before I continue with tonight's podcast, I would like to ask you to please like and subscribe to the Behind the Steel Curtain YouTube channel. We bring you live shows each and every day and night, including this show. Earlier on Friday, you saw the Touchdown Under program with Matty Peverall and Mark Davidson, the blokes from Australia, and they always bring you great insight. We have We Run the North with Kevin Tate and his buddies. They talk about all things AFC North. That's usually over the weekend. We have, excuse me, we have post-game shows after each and every Steelers game. We have that live. If it's a normal time, it's Jeff Hartman, Dave Schofield, and Brian Anthony Davis. If it's prime time, then it's Kyler Kreis and the gang over on the West Coast. So we have the Hangover on Monday with Brian and Shannon White and yours truly. We have the Scobro Show with Dave Schofield and Rich Schofield. We have Know Your Enemy with Shannon and Jeffrey Benedict. We have the Steelers Preview every Thursday, a very popular show with Jeff, Dave, and Brian. And you can catch all those shows live on Facebook. And you can also catch them after the fact on any audio platform of your choosing. Wherever you can find podcasts in audio form, you can find our live stuff after the fact. And we also have a whole host of audio-only shows, including Let's Ride with Jeff. We have the Steelers Fix with Jeremy Betts and Andrew Wilbar. We have Stat Geek with Dave Schofield. We have From the Cutting Room Floor with Jeffrey. Did I say the War Room with Maddie? Yes, we have that. We have Bad Language with Brian Anthony Davis. I believe that's an audio only show now. Yes, audio only. So, and you can catch all those shows on any audio platform. And please check out Behind the Steel Curtain, the website, bringing news, commentary, film breakdown. It's your one-stop shop for all your Steelers needs. It's a very busy site. They're always breaking news. They're always doing film rooms. They're always hitting you with commentary, opinions. It's a great site, so please check it out. And let's check out the live chat. See who we have. Excuse me. I have no voice on this Friday night. Devin Logan, first one in. He says, "What's up, Tony? What's up, Devin?" Kathy Ford, one of our legends. Builder's Life, who says, "Tony," with 2 explanation marks. So welcome. Samuel Ray, who says from Facebook, Jets 27, Steelers 6. We have Vegas. I'm not even going to say, I don't even know how to say that name, but welcome. We have Steelers Pittsburgh, George Teston, Daredevil, Ryan O'Toole, who says, "Tony, driving and can't comment tonight." Well, I'm glad you're listening or watching, Ryan. Welcome. Biggie Broncos with us. Claude Bishop. Welcome, guys. Lon Campbell. State of the Steelers. He says, "What's up, BTSC fam?" Pedro's with us. We have Daniel Red. We have all kind of people. And I'm glad you guys are with us. Let's talk about some Steelers. And the question is, are they going to get off the schneid, this 2-game losing streak, this Sunday at Acrisure Stadium when they take on the Jets, who are also, like the Steelers, 1-2. Pittsburgh's a 3.5-point favorite. Last I checked, that line's been 3.5 all week. Last I checked, it's 3.5. So can they beat them? And I think there's slight optimism that they can beat the Jets. They should beat the Jets. This is one of those games that people consider to be lesser competition. The Jets, one of those opponents, I should say, that fans consider to be lesser competition. But are they really? I don't know. You look at the Jets. Now, granted, this is with Joe Flacco over the first 3 games. He was filling in for an injured Zach Wilson at quarterback. They don't have a bad offense. They were through 3 weeks, they're 5th in the NFL in yardage. Flacco, I mean, again, this is Joe Flacco. It's not Zach Wilson, so it's a completely different animal. He's a veteran, 37 years old, and he's not going to be playing on Sunday. At least not. He's not going to start anyway. But he has 901 yards passing. He has 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's Joe Flacco. He's not going to dominate games anymore, but he's certainly capable of playing well still at the age of 37. But he won't be in there. Zach Wilson will be in there, who has missed almost 2 months of action with an injury, but he'll be back in there on Sunday, presumably. And how will they? Can they confuse him? Can they get after him? The Jets have at least 3 offensive linemen either on injured reserve or out. Mekhi, if I'm saying his first name wrong, I'm sorry. Becton, he's on injured reserve. They have another guy on injured reserve. They have somebody who's rolled out for the game. So their line's pretty decimated right now. I mean, you still have some good talent on that line, but they're missing a lot of tackles, and that's an important position, as you know. And the Steelers' pass rush has been pretty anemic without T.J. Watt, who's still on the injured reserve list. So can they generate a pass rush? Can they get home with 4, as they say, or are they going to have to start blitzing more, which they really haven't done all that much without Watt in there. But you have Alex Highsmith, who has 4.5 sacks. Believe it or not, he leads the NFL, although he had 3 of those in the first game with T.J. Watt on the other side, taking up a lot of double teams. So, but he has had a good season. You can't take it away from him. Alex Highsmith. This is obviously his best start to any season in his short career. So he has to play an important role on Sunday. That defensive line has to dominate this decimated offensive line of the Jets. Obviously starts with Cam Hayward. Adams is he's been promoted to a starter over Tyson Alualu. He's been struggling. Maybe age and injuries finally caught up to him at the age of 35. He turned 35 on May 12th, same birthday as yours truly. I wish I was 35, but anyway, Tyson is now second string. So you'll have Adams in there. Loudermilk will probably, if he's not inactive, he's probably going to see some action. Leal, and of course you have the other veteran starter, and that's Larry Ogunjobi. So it's incumbent upon them to take advantage of this injured and depleted Jets offensive line and finally get after the quarterback. Maybe shut down and run. The Jets have I think they have a pretty decent duo of running backs with Michael Carter and the rookie Breece Hall from Iowa State. It's not bad. I mean, if you look at their stats, they haven't put up a ton of yards. I think between the two of them, I want to say they have 234 yards, but their yards per carry is pretty good. So how Pittsburgh has struggled against the run without Watt, 295 yards the last 2 games without him. So that could be an area where the Jets try to exploit Pittsburgh. So they're going to have to be on their assignments in that game. And if they can shut down the Jets running game, then maybe they can make life miserable for Wilson and confuse him a bit. You got Minka back there as safety. Maybe he can play some games with his head and force a few takeaways, because that's probably what it's gonna take to generate some offense for the Steelers is some takeaways. If that even works, I don't know. But the Jets do have some weapons. Garrett Wilson, rookie receiver, he has 18 receptions already through 3 games. That's not bad. Keller Witherspoon will miss the game with an injury, so Levi Wallace, I'm assuming, is going to step up and start opposite Cam Sutton, and then that moves everybody else up. As far as the defensive backs, talking about people like Arthur Millette, they're going to have to play a more important role in this game. So, that could be a player worth watching, meaning Garrett Wilson. and if the other Wilson, Zach Wilson, gets enough time, maybe that's a way that they can exploit Pittsburgh, because they haven't been that great the secondary hasn't really been that great as far as shutting down the pass without a pass rush. So we saw that last week on the Thursday night game in Cleveland. Jacoby Brissett had a really good game, actually, really good game, really efficient game, and he probably could have had, as I talked about last week, he probably could have had an even better game if his receivers wouldn't have made some mistakes. So that could be one area where Pittsburgh's defense gets gouged by Wilson to Wilson. As far as the offense, the Steelers' offense at this point, I don't really know. The Jets have some decent players. Jordan Whitehead, former Pitt safety, he's a starter. I don't know how good he is, but he was a good player at Pitt. C.J. Mosley, the veteran inside linebacker, he's with them now. Carl Lawson, really good defensive lineman, formerly of the Bengals. He's a good player. So, they're in the middle of the pack on defense, meaning the Jets. So, but how Pittsburgh's offenses looked the last 2 years. They made every defense look like the 85 Bears or the 76 Steelers or 2000 Ravens, whoever you want to name. So, like I talked about, and like we keep talking about, the belief is you have to try to attack these defenses in a different way in order to see better results. Meaning you have to take more shots downfield. You have to take more intermediate shots down the middle of the field. Because think about it this way. If this was a foolproof way to shut down an offense, meaning crowd the box and play single high safety, then you'd shut down every offense in the NFL with that. So clearly, there's a way to beat that, and maybe it's just talent. Maybe Pittsburgh doesn't have the talent for it. Maybe they are really just playing too conservatively. Matt Canada and Mike Tomlin are quote unquote living in their fears, and they don't want to make any mistakes, and they want to leave it all up to their defense, which is, as we talked about before, seems really weird and outdated in 2022 to have that approach. Or maybe it's Mitch Trubisky and he just doesn't. He's not seeing the open guys. Maybe Canada's calling a better game than we think, and Trubisky's just not. He's either too afraid to make mistakes or he's not seeing the field properly. I don't know, but clearly, even though I think they moved the ball better against the Browns, at least over the first half, and they ran the ball really well in the first half, I don't think you're gonna ever have a solid running game in Pittsburgh, regardless of how much the line improves, unless you open things up in the passing game, unless you get these defenders to back off. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. I'm not looking for a high-scoring game. I'm looking for like a 20-10, 23-13, that kind of game, somewhere in there. I wouldn't be surprised if it was even closer than that. And I wouldn't be shocked if Pittsburgh lost. Again, the way they've been playing on offense the last couple of years, and with their defense kind of neutered a bit without Watt, I don't trust them against anybody. The Jets, obviously the Lions, they're probably even a bad example because they're playing better. But you name the worst teams in the league, I wouldn't trust them against any of them. And I'm not so sure Pittsburgh's not one of those worst teams in the league, which is kind of the point of the title of the article. This is going to be this might be their last chance, the Steelers, to prove that maybe they have superior talent to some teams in the league. And, if they can play a really solid game on both sides of the ball, then maybe they can have a convincing win over a team that a lot of people believe is inferior to them and maybe the worst team in the NFL, meaning the Jets. So, when you have their stretch of games coming up, you got the Bills, you got the Buccaneers, the Eagles. That's pretty tough sledding. And you're talking about some true Super Bowl contenders they're going to be going up against. So, if you don't get this win on Sunday, or if you get it and it's really, really ugly, and it's very, very much the way they've been winning games over the last couple of years, it might be a sign that this team truly is a bottom feeder, or is going to be in 2022. So, I think coming into the year, I said that they were going to win anywhere between 6 and 9 games. So clearly, I feel like there's a potential there for them to be a bad team. So when it comes to the whole lesser competition thing that people always throw out there, Mike Tomlin's teams always play down to the level of their competition. I'm not so sure there are many teams right now who are playing at a lower level than Pittsburgh. I think Steeler fans, and maybe this is true of most fans, especially most fans of your marquee franchises. I think they have a tendency to believe that their team's always better than it is. I remember in 2003 when they finished 6-10, the whole year, they were bringing up the rear. They were under 500 basically, and you'd hear fans calling into the talk shows. My brother would call me and insist that Pittsburgh would get back in it. They could win the AFC North because, to quote all of them, it was the worst division in football that year. It's the weakest division in football. But what never seemed to dawn on any of these people was that Pittsburgh was in last place or one of the worst, or at least, bringing up the rear in the quote unquote worst division in football. That never occurred to anybody. And sure enough, by season's end, they were way out of the playoff hunt. 10 years later, 2013, it was kind of like the same thing. That was the year that they were coming off of an off season of salary cap hell. They had to, dump a lot of people. They had to cut James Harrison because he wouldn't take a pay cut. A lot of their old Super Bowl guys retired or were released. They had really some major injuries in week one in a ugly week one loss at home to the Titans. Marquise Pouncey was lost for the year. Larry Foote was lost for the year. A couple other people were lost in that game for the year, and I mean they were decimated. Yet people still thought that there were some lesser competition out there in terms of teams that they quote unquote should beat, like the Vikings in London, who actually beat them in week 4 that year. So, I think we have a tendency to as much as Steeler fans can be like fatalistic, most fans are like that, but there's also that arrogance there that, they should, that their team is better than it actually is. So I'm not so sure at this point that the Steelers are even an average team at this point. I mean, obviously the defense has potential when Watt is in there, but it really hasn't shown the ability to be anything but average or worse than that without him, dating back to last year, 6-1 in 7 games without Watt, either for the full game or for part of the game due to injury. So, offensively, they do have some skill position players of repute, Harris and Deontay Johnson, Claypool, Pickens has promised Freiermuth. But, we keep saying that, but they're not really collectively putting it together on the field. They haven't. I mean, this group has not put together a game where you could say, wow, this offense can really be something. I mean, this group right here, Trubisky, Harris, Freiermuth, the receivers, they haven't had a game where you can say that this offense has the potential to be something special someday. So I don't know what's going to happen on Sunday, but my gut's telling me it's going to be another ugly, close game. And, offensively, you might be looking for some signs of hope wherever you can find them. So those are my thoughts on the Jets and the Steelers on Sunday, 1:00. Which reminds me, I have to make my prediction in the staff picks article. I forgot to do that for tonight's show. I'll probably do that tomorrow. So I'm not going to tell you what I think. I'll save that for the article. But I think you have a pretty good idea of the kind of game I think it's going to be. All right, and that takes me to here's one from Terry Bradford, and see, this is gonna come in handy for later in the show from YouTube. And he says, "Damn, Tony is a bit gloom and doom, huh?" I just call it like I think it is. I just call it as I see it. I'm optimistic when the time calls for it. I'm pessimistic when the time calls for it. But no matter what I say, people are always like, "Oh, if I say they're, if I'm down on a team, then I'm a gloom and doomer. If I'm positive about the team, then I'm just a sheeple or a sheep, or whatever they say. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, so there's no winning when it comes to that. Somebody's always ready to counter your opinion. Oh wow. Sorry, I'm glowing. I'm basking in the glow of Amy Ford's comment, who says, "I hate what Tony has to say because he's so often right." Ooh, well, I hope I'm not right in this case, Kathy. I hope I'm not. But that brings me to topic number 2. It was announced on earlier in the week that the Pro Bowl would be no more. The Pro Bowl as we know it would be no more starting in 2023, and it would be replaced by a week of skills competition, I guess, between the players who are named to the quote-unquote Pro Bowl now, followed by a flag football game. And to me, something like that was inevitable and was probably long overdue. I think the Pro Bowl wore out its usefulness years ago. Clearly, the players didn't want to put themselves in harm's way anymore. A lot of it, of course, is they don't want to risk their bodies and put themselves in harm's way for a meaningless game and potentially ruin their careers and throw away a lot of money in a game like that. But also I think all-star games in general have kind of worn out their welcome. They've kind of jumped the shark in modern times. I just think we have too many entertainment options, and people talk about every year the ratings for this game and that game and this all-star game, that Pro Bowl, they're getting lower and lower every year. I just think, we just have too many options as TV viewers, and I think we kind of realize now that just because it's something on your TV, just because you're playing football on TV, or just because you're playing basketball or hockey or baseball, doesn't mean we have to watch it. What are the stakes? Oh, they don't mean anything. This game means nothing. Then I don't want to watch. Sorry, I don't want to watch it. With the league becoming more and more legislative when it comes to trying to make the game safer, the NFL trying to make the game safer and trying to take as much precaution as they can when it comes to head injuries. And we see what's going on with Tua right now, the controversy over that. He appeared to suffer a concussion on Sunday in the game. Who were they playing? I forget. Anyway, the game last Sunday, and he helped them win. And he was cleared by the doctors to come back in that game and finish that game and then play on Thursday. And of course, if you probably know what happened on Thursday night against the Bengals. I mean, he suffered a horrific, a scary head injury, and he was in really bad shape. And apparently he's doing much better, and it's not as bad as it looked. But the NFL is drawing major criticisms today or on Friday from people around the league, from fans. Even though he was cleared to play, they're still being criticized roundly for that situation. So I think the league was probably trying to find a way to do away with the Pro Bowl, but still have something of an event for fans to be interested in, to tune into, to invest in. So now it's a skills competition and a flag football game. Is it something that interests me? No, but as I said, none of that stuff really interests me anymore. I'm 50 years old now, but I stopped paying attention to that kind of stuff when I was in my 30s, maybe even before that. Like the slam dunk contest, the home run contest for the MLB All-Star game, the Pro Bowl. It just again, my taste evolved and I saw so much success from the Steelers over the last 30 years when it came to playoffs and Super Bowls. And, it's just like something like that just doesn't interest me. And having it so close to the Super Bowl, either before or after it, a week before or a week after, that's another thing that kind of like takes the glow off of it. Maybe if it's in the middle of the year, which would be insane to do, that would never happen. Playing an exhibition all-star football game in the middle of a season, that nobody would play in it. So to have it at the end of the year, so close to the granddaddy of them all, so to speak. No offense to the Rose Bowl, but the Super Bowl, America's favorite sporting event. It just, you were never gonna make it into a must-see TV, especially in 2022. So I'm kind of glad to see the NFL kind of finally doing away with it. Because if you ever watched the game, especially the last 5 or 10 years, it was farcical. It was a farce because they weren't tackling anymore. They were just kind of holding each other up until the officials blew the whistle, which I get. Again, I get it. I mean, maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, these guys were out there trying to play 110%, and maybe there was more incentive for whoever won that game, for whatever the prize money. The winner's share is for the Pro Bowl. Is there a winner's share? I think there is. So maybe there was more incentive back then to do that. But clearly, these guys make so much money now. Even the vet minimum is enough of a incentive to kind of shy away from that game. Being named is probably all the honor that they want, and they have contractual incentives for being named to the Pro Bowl. So they'll still get to have that by being named to this, whatever they're going to call this, skills competition week. So, it's big back to Tua, right? Back in the 90s, they had Snickers had a commercial that kind of mocked a player with who had a concussion in a football. I mean, it was a fictional character, but they back in the day, concussions weren't deemed that serious. Like, oh, he has a concussion, he'll be okay. At least it wasn't a knee injury. Well, now clearly, when you see how the nation and how the NFL is reacting to Tua's head injury, clearly we've evolved to the point now where we recognize how dangerous head injuries are in the NFL. Just like these players are realizing more and more that they don't have to put themselves in harm's way for a game that doesn't count, and college players began to realize that along maybe 10 years ago. Look at Kenny Pickett last year. He didn't play in the Peach Bowl because he didn't want to suffer an injury before the most important day of his life, meaning the NFL draft. And unless you're in the playoffs or the national championship game of college football, you're probably going to be more inclined to sit out a bowl game, even if it's a prestigious game like the Rose Bowl or the Orange Bowl or the Sugar Bowl, etc. So, we just evolve. We continue to evolve as a society, and it wouldn't surprise me if these other major leagues followed suit and did away with their all-star games. I mean, I don't even know what they do in the NHL anymore. It's like they play some kind of tournament. Baseball's like probably the closest thing that they have now to the real thing. But even that, I don't think anybody really cares anymore because of interleague play. It used to be a big deal to see, a Pirate on the same field as a Yankee. But now, I mean, they play each other every few years. So those are my thoughts on the Pro Bowl. And I have one more topic I wanted to tackle. And I couldn't wait to get to this because I was talking to a friend about this the other day. And as Terry said earlier, Terry Bradford, I believe. Did I miss that? Yeah, Terry Bradford. I've been pretty critical of the team lately. And, I think it's justified because I think they haven't given me or the fans anything to really brag about lately, other than a couple of surprise opening week wins, last year and this year. I mean, they've really just been, I don't know, just struggling. So I've been critical of them, but when the time calls for it, I'm positive and upbeat about the Steelers too. I think, when you do what I do, even if it's not a full-time job, it's my job, I think, to write and talk about what I see. And if they're playing well, if they're 12-3 going into the last couple of games of the year, I'm not going to be like, oh, this team's going to blow it. They're just going to blow it. Tomlin always. I'm not one of those people. But if they're 3-8, I'm not saying, oh, I'm a Steeler fan through and through. I don't care what anybody says. I never give up on my Steelers. No, I'm going to be critical of the play and the coaching and everything. That's just what you do. You it's like a comedian. A comedian talks about what's going on in the world at any given moment. Well, somebody like me who writes regularly and does podcasts regularly, I'm going to be talking about what's going on right now, the state of the Steelers. We have state of the Steelers with us in the live chat. That's what I do. That's what we all do. We talk about the state of the team in the moment. But I think that's fair. That's fair for people to be critical of a team that can't seem to score more than one touchdown a game. I think it's fair to be critical of a team that can't seem to do anything on defense without TJ Watt. Even though TJ Watt's such a great player, they have all these other great players. Why can't they come up with an effective game plan? It's fair to criticize it. That's not what I mean by the aggrieved fan. When I'm talking about the chronically aggrieved fan, like I said in the description, I mean somebody who just never seems to be happy. Like with the team, no matter what, whether they're 13-3 or 3-13, they're always griping about something. As if the team personally affects them, as if the team is doing something to them personally, ruining their lives personally. Like when people talk about how Pittsburgh hasn't won a playoff game in 5 years, they say it as if they've been unemployed for 5 years. When they talk about Art the Second needs to be held accountable. He needs to answer for this. Like they act like they're talking about, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say the P word, a politician, somebody who's running for who's an elected official. They act like they're talking about something that's personally affecting them. And I realize, sports, when you're a diehard sports fan, yes, you're gonna get emotional about it. If they win, you're gonna be happy. If they lose, you're gonna be depressed. But some people, I mean, like 2 weeks ago on the Hangover with Brian and Shannon, we spent like an hour criticizing everything about the team after that game against the Patriots, including Mike Tomlin. And what did I see in the YouTube comments that I probably should never visit? I should never read. Right after the show, we were all Tomlin apologists. We were all homers. And we didn't want to really tell the truth about Mike Tomlin. Those kind of people. Like, we criticize the guy for an hour, but what they want is they want us to talk about how he should be fired. They want to talk about how Matt Canada should be fired. They want to talk about how this player should be cut. You know, when people want to be critical of the team, they can't just be critical. Like, you can't sit there and say, "Oh, what was he thinking on that play? Why did he call this?" It always comes back to, well, Mike Tomlin needs to be fired. Mike Tomlin needs to be fired. That's all anybody ever wants to. You know, they don't want to argue, or they don't want to sit there and just debate about, you know, what's going on right now with the team. They want to talk about, you know, getting their pound of flesh. This guy needs to be fired. This guy needs to be cut. And that might even be okay sometimes, but there are people that are on year-long crusades for this kind of stuff. Like, they're complaining about it in April. They're talking about it in May. They're talking about it during the season. They're talking about it right before the playoffs. They never seem to be happy with the team in any way. And it'd be one thing if it was like this, if some of these people were, you know, started acting like this within the last couple of years. But I've been doing this for 12 years. And there have been people that have been acting like this the entire time. You know, I really got fascinated with this kind of thing back when SB Nation got affiliated with Facebook I think it was about 2015 or so, somewhere in there. And you would see these people on these so-called Steelers fans on Facebook, and you would just go and just go back and look at their updates and their pictures and their past and their timeline, you know, if it was available. And it was just like years of them just like acting like they were tormented by this team. And I'm like, why are you watching? If it bothers you that much, why are you even paying attention to this football team? You know, and people like to say, well, you know, we have standards, Tony. We have standards. The fans have high expectations. Yeah, no kidding. Most fans do it. Of most teams in professional sports, they have high expectations. They have high standards. Steeler fans don't own that that distinction. They're not alone in that regard. You don't think the Patriots fans have high expectations? They won 6 Super Bowls in the last 20 years. You don't think the Packers fans do, or the Giants? Even the Giants have been struggling lately, but they're one of the NFL's gold standards as far as NFL teams. 49ers fans, you don't think they have high standards? You know, those are just words. You know, lots of just basically every team has a period where it struggles, even for 10 years. If you want to call what the Steelers have been doing as a struggle over the last decade. You know, they made the playoffs how many times? Like 6 or 7, whatever that is. However many division titles, you know. But, you know, they haven't produced the results that people want in terms of championships. Well, clearly those aren't that easy to obtain. Ask everybody else, and they'll tell you the same. You know, that's why 6 is the standard, and that's why, you know, the Patriots might be stuck on 6 for the next 50 years, like the Steelers were stuck on 4 for 25 years or 26 years, whatever it was. You know, it's clearly not easy to win a championship in the NFL, or, you know, there'd be some teams out there with 15 or 20 or 25 Super Bowls, like the Lakers have however many championships, or the Yankees. Not that it's easy for those teams. I'm not saying it's but it's clearly, they call the NFL the parity league for a reason. You know, so that's something I've discovered over the years. When people can't just criticize the team without it quickly devolving into, well, this guy's got to go, that guy's got to be fired. And to me, it's wasted energy to talk about that, because it's not going to happen. At least not right now. You know, we keep talking about Tomlin and his stretch of mediocre play, but where's the truly bad play from this team? You know, as I've said before, they've done a remarkable job over the last 10 years keeping this thing going when most other teams probably would have fallen off a cliff and gone through some real bad times. The 49ers did that. The Giants are going through that now. It's not easy to stay afloat and remain competitive. If you look around at sports history, when you have the kind of Super Bowl era that they did in the 2000s, usually the next decade is kind of blah, and that's what Pittsburgh's been, kind of blah. But probably sexier than a lot of other teams would be. I mean, they're still winning division titles. They made it to an AFC Championship game. All the while going through 2 or 3 roster overhauls. So people keep bringing up Tomlin's last 5 years. Well, here's Bill Cowher's, and I hate to criticize Cowher because I love the guy. Heck, I live in the same neighborhood that he grew up in. I could walk to his street that he grew up on, Hawthorne Avenue. I could probably walk there in 3 minutes. I hate criticizing the guy, but I have to point out his flaws because everybody always compares him to Cowher and acts like compares Cowher to Tomlin and acts as if Tomlin or Cowher was his perfect coach. But here's a stretch by Bill Cowher during the middle of his career. 1998, 7-9. 1999, 6-10. 2000, 9-7, pretty good. Still didn't make the playoffs though. 01, 13-3, made it to the AFC Championship game, lost at home to the Patriots. 02, 10-5-1, made it to the divisional round, and what's his face put on a great acting job at the end of that Titans game, and they got screwed over a little bit. And then of course 03, they were 6-10. That's not a great stretch. And I know I say this all the time, but I'm never going to be able to convince you because it doesn't fit your quote unquote agenda. But there were calls for many years for Bill Cowher to be fired, by the fans, by the media. The things that people are saying about Tomlin now, about him being a player's coach and him being out coached all the time and him not knowing what he's doing, they were saying the same thing about Bill Cowher back then, that he didn't have what it took to win the big game. And up until Super Bowl 40 that year, his just like Tomlin right now, his postseason record was below 500. It was 8-9, if my math is correct. It was 8-9 up until 05, and they went on that magical run. They won 4 games. Boom. The next year, they finished 500. He retires, and you move on to Tomlin. So, Bill Cowher wasn't this perfect head coach until he won a Super Bowl, retired, and ascended up to heaven, and was replaced by Tomlin. And now Tomlin can do no right, and he doesn't know what he's doing. And when he first started, he was just a figurehead. What does Tomlin do? He doesn't do anything. Now he has too much control, and he has too many, so the guy can't win. But enough about that. As far as the again, back to the forever aggrieved Steeler fan, like I said already, yes, you invest your time, you invest your money into this team, but you're investing in something that that is unpredictable. It's not like you went out and bought a car. I mean, that might be a bad example. A computer, another bad example. Okay, it's not like you went out and bought a TV. And when you turn the TV on, it's supposed to come on, and the picture's supposed to be clear. You paid for a unpredictable outcome, and that's half the fun. At least you would think it's half the fun, is knowing that, geez, I'm sitting down to watch this game, or I'm going to the stadium to watch this team, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how this is going to turn out. That's half the fun. But fans literally act like they are owed a certain outcome, and you're really not. Nobody is owed an outcome. What you're owed is for the team to try to do its best to put the best product together. But guess what? There are 31 other teams who are trying the exact same thing. Their goals are the exact same as the Steelers are. They don't have a monopoly on the quote unquote standard. So Just please, if it bothers you that much, where you have to be, like people talk about like the live chat, how Beyond Steel Curtain has a live chat during every game, and people are like, oh, I avoid the live chat because people are just so emotional. Okay, but at least that's understandable. That's being a sports fan is you're going to be reacting in the moment to a game. What I don't get is why are people angry in May? Why are people angry in June? Why are people angry in July? Like, don't you ever just take time off and just start, looking forward to the new year? Like, so many fans act like Randy Quaid in Major League Two, the guy when he was in the outfield stands. He was always down on them. He was always expecting the worst. That's how so many fans act. And to me, that's not fun. It's fun to be. They're 12-3. All right. They've won a lot of games by a field goal, but I'm not going to expect the worst. I'm going to expect the best. To me, that's fun. I'm not always expecting the other shoe to drop. But anyway, I ranted for a long time, and I'm sorry, but I had to get that off my chest. I did, because I just don't understand the grievance fan, the people who are like they feel personally affected by the team to an unreasonable level. I just never understood that kind of person, and social media has made it so that we have to hear from these people all year round. They never have a chance to like kind of take it in their defense. They never have a chance to take some time away from the team, because there's always a platform available for them to air their grievances, and they air them all year round. And it's just it's gotten to the point where it's become insufferable, in my opinion, if I may be critical. And that's what I'm going to say about that. All right. Let's see what we have here in the live chat. I've really been negative Nancy tonight, a Debbie Downer, a gloom and doomer. And this one from Steelers Pittsburgh about the Pro Bowl decision to not be the Pro Bowl anymore. And he says, Pete Rose ruined Ray Fosse's career in the All-Star game. That's right. Ray Fosse, 1970. He was Pete Rose just didn't care. He was going full bore. I guess it was extra innings or the ninth inning, bottom of the ninth, at I believe Riverfront Stadium, if I'm not mistaken. And he bowled Ray Fosse right over. And Fosse was injured, and he played some years after that, but he was never quite the same. And Pete Rose and Fosse actually went out to lunch or dinner the night or a couple nights before that game, because Ray Fosse wanted to pick Pete Rose's brain about Johnny Bench, the premier catcher at the time. And this one from Biggie Bronco. I'm sorry, that was I thought there was something else. That he was talking to somebody else about I guess some television stuff. Let's see. This one from Mark Tobin, who says, we should not fall off losing one guy. I mean, meeting TJ Watt, you're going to fall off a little bit. You should expect like I said, you have to expect a drop off from TJ Watt, but it's gotten to the point now where they can't seem to do anything without him on defense. And that's kind of unusual, especially for a defense that has that kind of star power in addition to Watt. You're talking about Cam Hayward. You're talking about Ogunjobi now. You're talking about Miles Jack. Obviously, Mika Fitzpatrick, who, through 1 week looked like he was going to be the, runaway defensive player of the year. You shouldn't have that much of a drop-off without Watt, even though he is that important. This from Christopher 11. He says, we have faith in Mitch Trubisky. Yeah, I mean, that's a rare opinion nowadays. And this one is from Mark Tobin, who says, well, I bet if we watch tape, we can all agree that Canada's offense is not it. Yeah, I mean, that's a debate. Is it Trubisky not seeing the field, or is it Canada not being a good OC? I mean, he's really not been a great OC all throughout his career, other than 1 year at Pitt in 2016. I was here for that, obviously. That was a great year. But he really hasn't been able to duplicate that anywhere else since. And, of course, I'm sure he would have loved to have had Primetime Ben and AB and Lev Bell in that great offensive line of the mid-2010s. Maybe he would have been a genius offensive coordinator there, too. And this is one from Biggie Bronco. Follow up to the should not be a drop off after Watt. And he says, not when your second best defensive lineman is getting double and triple team. When you lose a player like that, it affects everything on that defensive line. That's a good point, Biggie Bronco. Biggie Bronco knows what he's talking about. And it's from Mark Malone. And he says, I've known people that have actually stopped watching. I mean, I'm not going to lie. They are difficult to watch, but I think, coming off the heels, like I talked about last week, coming off the heels of that fantastic offensive juggernaut that they were in the 2010s, it's hard to, follow that up. But I mean, they've really taken a dive since then. This one is from Mark Tobin again. He says, I'm not sure what the criteria is for firing a guy, but I'd say it can't get much worse than that. You're talking about Canada. I don't think it's, it's not, they're not going to fire him in the middle of the year. They're just not going to do it. Now, if they were a true Super Bowl contender, then maybe you have to make a drastic change so you don't totally fall off the cliff. But right now, I think they're gonna try to ride it out with Canada and see what manifests from here on out. Because I think everybody expects Pickett to be in at some point this year. So maybe when he finally does get in there, it might make a difference for that offense as far as how he meshes with Canada. Who knows? And this one is from Tim Simmers. I don't understand why, as a fan, questioning coaches don't make you a good fan. It's not about questioning coaches. It's not about that. I get it. We all question coaches. They're supposed to be questioned. But it seems like you can't question a coach without it dissolving or regressing into, well, he's got to be fired. Like people go on crusades to see that, about this, like they want a politician kicked out of office. It's like, just get over it. It's not going to happen. They're not going to fire Mike Tomlin, not right now. Again, if there's a few 6-11 seasons, maybe that happens. I mean, I told you about Cowher's stretch there, and that wasn't enough for them to fire him. They gave him an extension in the middle of that run in the late 90s into the early 2000s. I think they value stability in their organization. They value stability on the executive front, and they value stability on the coaching front. I mean, they had decades where they were going through one coach after another before Noel arrived. I don't think they consider firing a head coach is like they don't just do that like other organizations. They don't just take that lightly. That's something that they think very strongly about. Before they do it. Chuck Noll, there were some close calls with him in the 80s as far as him possibly losing his job. But they didn't want that to happen. Bill Cowher almost lost the power struggle with Tom Donahoe in the late 90s. He could have been gone. But, again, I don't think they don't go looking for that kind of stuff as an organization. They like stability at every level, pretty much. Even on the 53-man roster, which is hard to have stability there, because it's just it's such a revolving door of players in the NFL. So, wow, it's almost 10 o'clock. I think I better call it a night. I rambled on for so long, but it was great talking to you guys. Hopefully, the Steelers give us something great to talk about on Sunday against the Jets, and check back to Behind the Steel Curtain, the website and the podcasting platform for more Steelers content between now and then. And then after the game, you're going to have the post-game show. You're going to have plenty of articles on the website. And of course, you're going to have the hangover and all of our podcasts all throughout next week. We'll break things down for you. It's an important game for Pittsburgh because, there's a big difference between 1-3 and 2-2 in the NFL. And I don't think they want I don't think they want to drop the 1-2 or 1-3. So talk to you again. Have a great weekend and go Steelers. Bye, everybody.